Welcome, my friends, my family, my fellow gamers. It's your only friend in these YouTube streets, PorterRock77, and I'm back with another hot take, okay? I know I promised this on Twitter that I was going to do it last night, but something happened. What happened? Nothing serious, but I made the mistake of picking up my PS5 controller, and I started playing games. And at that point, I didn't want to do the video, so sorry about that. Should have never picked up with that controller, right? But I'm doing it now, and this is about Jason Schreier's article, so I'm going to give you just a little bit heads up. This hot take might be a little bit longer than normal, only because what I'm about to do is I am going to read the article. Some of you already read the article and wondering why, oh, we most likely read the article, Porter, just go straight to your point. No, because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to read this video, who's going to view this video, and they never read the article. They probably only read the headline, and then they jump straight into the conversation, whether it's on Twitter or whatever, or because they didn't read the article themselves, they're getting the information from other podcasters or other influencers. The problem is those influencers are putting their own spin on it, right? So what we're going to do here is I'm going to read, and, listen, if you don't want to, you could just fast forward. That's the one good thing about the hot take and not going live. You don't have to go through it if you really don't want to. But what I want to make sure is we establish a baseline, all right? I'm going to read the article in its entirety so you already know that I'm not leaving out something or playing any games or doing any weird stuff, all right? Or misinterpreting something. It's going to go straight from the article. This is from Bloomberg.com, where Jason Schreier now works. This is his actual article. This is not a sub-article from IGN or Kotaku or whoever interpreting what he's saying. No, this is his, okay? So let's kick it off, right, to not delay the information. So, title, Sony's obsession with blockbusters is stirring unrest within PlayStation empire. So that's the clickbait headline. So just reading from that headline, PlayStation Empire, you're thinking of everything across PlayStation, all the development studios, just pretty much the empire, right? And that's the hook. A small team had big ambitions for a Last of Us remake, but Sony handed the work to Star Studio Naughty Dog by Jason Schreier, April 9th, 2021. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now, I'm going to read it. Sony Corp's Visual Arts Service Group has long been the unsung hero of many hit PlayStation video games. The San Diego-based operation helps finish off games designed at other Sony-owned studios with animation, art, and other content and development. But about 3 years ago, a handful of influential figures within the Visual Arts Service Group decided they wanted to have more creative control and lead game direction rather than being supporting actors on popular titles such as Spider-Man and Uncharted. Michael Mumbauer, and I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly, who took over direction of the Visual Arts Service Group in 2007, recruited a group of about 30 developers internally and from neighboring game studios to form a new development unit within Sony. The idea was to expand upon some of the company's most successful franchises, and the team began working on a remake of the 2013 hit The Last of Us for PlayStation 5. But Sony never fully acknowledged the team's existence or gave them the funding and support needed to succeed in the highly competitive video game market, according to people involved. The studio never even got its own name. Instead, Sony moved ownership of The Last of Us remake to its original creator, Naughty Dog, a Sony-owned studio behind many of the company's best-selling games and an HBO television series in development. Deflated, the small group's leadership has largely disbanded, according to interviews with 8 people familiar with the operation. Many, including Mumbauer, have left the company entirely. Mumbauer declined to comment, and others asked not to be named, discussing private information. A representative for Sony declined to comment or provide interviews. The team's failure highlights the complex hierarchy of video game development and, in particular, Sony's conservative approach to making games for the PlayStation 5. The Japanese conglomerate owns about a dozen studios across the world as part of its PlayStation Studios label, but in recent years it has prioritized games made by its most successful developers. Studios such as Santa Monica, California-based Naughty Dog, and Amsterdam-based Guerrilla Games spend tens of millions of dollars to make games with the expectation that the investments will pay off exponentially. And they usually do. Hits including 2018's God of War and 2020's The Last of Us Part 2 are exclusive to PlayStation consoles, helping Sony sell some 114 million of the PS4. Rival Microsoft Corp has taken the opposite approach, relying on a wide array of studios to feed its Netflix-like subscription service, Xbox Game Pass, which allows users to pay a monthly fee for unlimited access to a variety of games. Sony's focus on exclusive blockbuster has come at the expense of niche teams and studios within the PlayStation organization, leading to high turnover and less choice for players. Last week, Sony reorganized a development office in Japan, resulting in mass departures of people who worked on less well-known but acclaimed games such as Gravity Rush and Everybody's Golf. The company has informed developers that it no longer wants to produce smaller games that are only successful in Japan, Bloomberg has reported. This fixation on teams that churn out hits is creating unrest across Sony's portfolio of game studios. Oregon-based Sony Bend, best known for the 2019 open-world action game Days Gone, tried unsuccessfully to pitch a sequel that year. According to people familiar with the proposal, although the first game had been profitable, its development had been lengthy and critical reception was mixed, so a Days Gone 2 wasn't seen as a viable option. Instead, one team at the studio was assigned to help Naughty Dog with a multiplayer game, while a second group was assigned to work on a new Uncharted game with supervision from Naughty Dog. Some staff, including top leads, were unhappy with this arrangement and left. Ben's developer feared they might be absorbed into Naughty Dog, and the studio's leadership asked to be taken off the Uncharted project. They got their wish last month and are now working on a new game of their own that will be part of a brand new franchise. Emphasizing big hits can also be counterproductive because sometimes games that start small can turn into massive successes. In 2020, Sony didn't put much marketing muscle behind the quirky video game creation system Dreams by the PlayStation-owned Media Molecule in the UK. As a result, PlayStation may have missed out on its own version of Roblox, a similar video game tool. Parent company Roblox Corp went public earlier this year and is now valued at $45 billion. For their first solo project, Mumbauer and his crew wanted to pitch something that would be well received by their bosses at Sony. Recognizing the risk and expense involved with developing a new game from scratch, they decided to focus on remaking older games for the new PlayStation 5. Remakes are considered a safe bet since it's cheaper to update and polish an old game than it is to start from scratch. And they can be sold both to nostalgic old fans and curious new ones. The team originally planned on a remake of the first Uncharted game, released by Naughty Dog in 2007. That idea quickly fizzled because it would be expensive and require too much added design work. Instead, the team settled on a remake of Naughty Dog's 2013 melancholical zombie hit, The Last of Us. At the time, Naughty Dog was in the thick of development on the sequel, The Last of Us Part 2, which would introduce higher fidelity graphics and new gameplay features. If Mumbauer's crew remade the first game to have a similar look and feel, the two games could be packaged together for the PlayStation 5. In theory, this would be a less expensive proposition than remaking Uncharted, since The Last of Us was more modern and wouldn't require too many gameplay overhauls. Then, once Mumbauer's group had established itself, it could go on to remake the first Uncharted game and other titles down the road. But pivoting from finishing work for other games to making your own is difficult, since original development teams are competing against hundreds of other teams from all over the world, with varying levels of experiences and successes, said David Lang, founder of Iron Galaxy Studios, which has served as a support team and a development studio. The people funding the work are often risk averse, and if they have to pick between a team that's done it before and someone trying to do it on their own for the first time, I can see why some people pick the prior developer over the latter, he said. That's just what Sony did. Mumbauer's project, codenamed T1X, was approved on a probationary basis, but Sony kept the team's existence a secret and refused to give them a budget to hire more people, leading many to wonder if the company was really committed to letting the team build a new studio. Still, the small team kept working, and by the spring of 2019, they had completed a section of the game's design to showcase how the rest would look and feel. At the time, Sony was going through a management shuffle, and the new boss wasn't impressed. Herman Hulst, the former head of Guerrilla Games, was named head of PlayStation Worldwide Studios in November 2019. He thought the remake project was too expensive, according to people familiar with the matter, and asked why the planned budget for T1X was so much higher than remakes Sony had made in the past. The reason was that this one was a brand new graphical engine for the PlayStation 5. Mombauer needed to hire more people to help rework the graphics on new technology as well as redesign gameplay mechanics. Hulse wasn't convinced, the people said. Just when it hoped to enter production on the remake of The Last of Us, Mombauer's team got called in to help with another big game, fell behind. Release of The Last of Us Part 2 had been pushed to 2020 from 2019, and Naughty Dog needed the Visual Art Service Group to polish it off. Most of Mombauer's team, along with some of the 200 or so staff at the Visual Art Service Group, was assigned to support Naughty Dog, slowing down progress of its own game. Then the roles got reversed. Sony sent word that after the completion of The Last of Us Part 2, some people from Naughty Dog would help out with T1X. Mombauer's team saw this as their short-lived autonomy being stripped. Dozens of Naughty Dog staff were joining the project, and some had actually worked on the original The Last of Us, giving them more weight in discussions about T1X's direction. The game was moved under Naughty Dog's budget, which Sony gave more leeway than the Visual Arts Service Group. Soon, it was apparent that Naughty Dog was in charge, and the dynamics returned to what they had been for the last decade and a half. The Visual Arts Support Group aiding another team of developers rather than leading. To Sony, the move made sense. Naughty Dog is one of the key studios for Sony's ability to sell PlayStations, said Bloomberg intelligence analyst Matthew Canterman. Sony's competitive advantage has always been exclusive content over Microsoft, and more new games as well as remakes of classic titles from such a story team can help sustain demand for PS5. But those who had wanted independence were disappointed. By the end of 2020, most of the T1X team top staff had left, including Mombauer and the game's director David Hall. Today, the T1X project remains in development at Naughty Dog with assistance from Sony's Visual Arts Support Group. The future of the remainder of Mombauer's team, which has come to be jokingly referred to as Naughty Dog South, remains unclear. Alright, so that's the article, and I just read. Took a little bit, but alright, so now we're gonna go into my hot take. Alright, so let's precept Jason Schreier. Right, Jason Schreier has been known to be a whistleblower, write good content. He wrote a book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, all that stuff. The first thing you got to realize is his articles have to have some type of, I don't want to use word doom and gloom. I don't want to use that word, but it has to have a level of punch, if you know what I mean. Okay, there has to be a punch to it, because if there's no punch, then it's not worth reading. Okay, so right here it says Sony's obsession with blockbusters stirring unrest within PlayStation Empire. Yeah, he only really talked about 2 studios having issues, and really, technically speaking, really only 1 studio that is known, which is Sony Ben. Visual Arts Service Group, right? Well, at one point, if you look here, right, he calls it Service Group here, but then, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe, well, he calls the Service Group a couple of times, Visual Arts Service Group, and I think he calls it Visual Arts Service Group a couple, does he? And maybe, hold on, let me look, let me see something, maybe I could be wrong. Oh, here we go. But then he calls it Support Group. So which is it? Are they called Service Group or Support Group? Right? Now, the reason why that name stuck out to me, because if your studio is called Visual Arts Support Group, then that's who you are. You are a supporting establishment that's designed to support the various first-party teams under the PlayStation group, right? And maybe whether it's called service group or support group, that's probably their purpose. Your purpose is not to be an independent studio. Your purpose is to be literally what you're designed for, to help out other main studios finish projects, polish off projects, and then you move on to the next, which is a smart concept, right? I think any studio should have that. You should have a dedicated studio that's designed to support, you know, other projects and give your main studio some type of level, right? So I don't see nothing wrong with that, okay? But anyway, Unrest within PlayStation Empire, yeah, he only names the Visual Arts Service Support Group and Sony's Bend Studio, right? But yeah, ultimately, Sony Bend Studio got what they wanted, which is a new IP. They are now developing a new AAA IP. So is it really Unrest? Is there really Unrest across the spectrum, right? The problem is this, right? This Visual Arts Service Group, which is not even, until today, I didn't even know they existed, right? I didn't really go deep into that, right? He creates this big article over something I don't think there is really an issue, right? Because if you got this group who's primarily designed to be a supporting group, but let's say they took it upon their own initiative to say, you know what? Let's try to remake The Last of Us 1 for the PS5, because while we could do great things with it, it's not that expensive, and maybe this opens the door for Sony to let us create even more new games, right? Maybe that's their intention, right? Maybe they're trying to be, you know, that one studio be like, man, give us a shot, Sony, put us in, coach, right? I could respect that, right? But once they chose that game and Sony saw it, maybe Sony saw something like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea, but we're going to go with our A team. We're going to go with the team that knows what they're doing. So we're going to shift that project that you started, and we're going to move it over to Naughty Dog, who's been there, done that. They have the better direction. And I'm sorry, Naughty Dog is one of the top teams in Sony's arsenal, right? Visual Arts Group isn't. Does that sound disappointing on not giving people a chance or a foot in the door to do their own thing? Yeah, that does sound kind of crappy or whatever. But ultimately, does it result in potentially the remake being a better game? And when it does release, it releases with the Naughty Dog seal of quality and not this Visual Arts Group seal of quality. Well, that depends on the customer who ends up buying this game. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to buy, or at least if the Last of Us remake comes out by itself, I'm not going to buy it. You know, I probably won't even buy a Last of Us 2 remake on the PS5. I'd just probably ignore it altogether. But that's a separate conversation, right? So the way Jason Schreier framed this, he made it worse than what it sounds. Because again, number one, the studio, no one knows the studio. They never produced a game in of themselves that we are now like, oh my God, now we can't play this game. As far as the game base go, this doesn't really impact us. It doesn't mean anything. The only thing we get out of this information in terms of that is Naughty Dog's making a Last of Us remake, specifically for the PS5, built on the PS5. So I think the real question is that something we really want? Like, do we want Naughty Dog to really... Should that have been a thing in the first place, right? We want new games. We talk about we want new games. And right off the bat, we're going to have a remake which already had a remake on the PS4. Like, how many times are we going to remake the same game? Sure, there's people that are going to be like, oh, I guarantee you buy it. I'm buying it, right? And I'm sure some people are going to rebuy it, whatever, right? Skyward Sword's going to be rebought. But that's not the point. The point is, if you have the manpower to build a game from the ground up, why The Last of Us? Now, of course, they said it's a safe bet, but is that what we want to encourage? Do we want to encourage Sony making safe decisions? Because how many damn times are we going to play The Last of Us? Like, how many more times can you play this game? You played it on the PS3, then they remastered it on the PS4. They updated it on the PS4 Pro, and then they updated it again, you know, with faster loading, whatever. And now on the PS5, they're going to recreate it again. Like, how many more times are you going to buy and play this game? Like, how many more? Do you want a PS6 remake, a PS7 remake, a PS8 remake? Let's just make the same game over and over for every single console. Like, it's like twice already. You got it on PS3. They remade it on PS4. Just do an update. And that's it. And let it go, right? We got a PS5. Instead of the team dedicating manpower and money on this game, do something new. Right? Have 2 new IPs. Have 2 new projects. They're supposedly making an Uncharted game, which is all right. Okay, fine. You got Uncharted 5. Fine. Right? And then a new IP at the same time. Not Uncharted 5 and, oh, we're going to re-release Last of Us again. Let's just do it again. Like, I'm not feeling that, right? I'm just not feeling that. Especially, and I'll add to this with this whole thought of Sony going double downing, right? So here it is. Sony's focus on exclusive blockbuster has come at the expense of niche teams and studios within PlayStation organization, leading to a high turnover rate and less choice for players. That statement kind of disagree because he's already making a claim that we have not seen yet. Okay. For example, they mentioned Japan studios, right? And the makers of Gravity Rush and everybody's gone and all that stuff. Those guys are gone, right? But when you look at in total, all the games Japan studios made is really Bloodborne, and that was in concert, a joint effort with From Software. So if you wanted a Bloodborne 2, if any of us wanted Bloodborne 2, From Software would have to be part of the project. They're probably not going to dedicate any time to making another Sony exclusive, right? Especially since then, they've really blown up, right? Dark Souls helped them blow up, but Sekiro put them on the map, and now they're doing Elden Ring, and I would imagine they have another IP after that. They're probably only interested in making the games on every platform because that's where the success lies. I don't think From Software is interested in making PlayStation exclusives anymore, especially Bloodborne 2. They have no vested interest in that. Sure, Sony does, but maybe not From Software. And since From Software most likely don't want to deal with it, where does that leave Japan Studios? Right now, outside of Bloodborne, Timo Sorbo, right, if I pronounce correctly, has been making very good and popular VR games within the construct of VR. And I think that's Sony's direction with Japan Studios. I think they want to focus and help grow VR. And maybe they have advisors in Japan Studios and working with other companies that want to make games from Japan. But the idea is they don't want to make games that are only successful in Japan. They want a worldwide conglomerate, which makes sense. I seen on the internet, many people are upset that Sony's not focusing on Japan. And some of those people don't even live in Japan. Now, I'm not saying there's a difference between focusing in Japan and releasing Japanese games. It's 2 different statements. Do not confuse Sony not wanting to focus on games that are only successful in Japan with Sony not making games from Japan. They still want Japanese games. They just want the big blockbuster Japanese games that the whole world can appeal to, that the whole world is willing to buy, not just the consumer specifically within the region of Japan. And I would imagine that decision has more to do with the consumer base of Japan than as compared to their own internal decision. And the reason why I say that is Japan has become, Japanese gamers have become more driven by mobile gaming, right? So Nintendo is killing it, and the Japanese love that platform, and they're buying a lot of games. They love their phone games. They love the mobility of gaming more than dedicated consoles. Dedicated console, at-home consoles have been a little bit on the decline, and while the mobile gaming market has been on the rise. Sony does not have a mobile platform. They're not making mobile platforms anymore. Vita was the last one, and they're done with it. So, if you make a dedicated console for the home, and you don't have a mobile platform, but the Japanese region is definitely growing and dominating with mobile games, you really don't have a place for it. The only thing you can really do is make the games that Japanese wants, but also is extremely popular to the rest of the world because that's where your platform shines. So I can see why Sony's saying they don't want games exclusive for Japan, because right off the bat, that's a challenge. If you put in investments behind games that is only successful in Japan, or that Japan is the only one that's appealed to that game, or you're making a game, better put, you're making a game that's really only going to be appealed by the Japanese there, you already are starting from the losing block. Because right off the gate, they're already telling you they prefer mobile gaming. So the game really has to be something to get their attention, because mobile gaming has been dominant over there. So why would you do that to yourself when you have a platform that is a global, worldwide dominating force? So why wouldn't you focus on the overall picture instead of focusing or putting in money towards games that's specific to a region, and yet you're already behind the power curve in that region because you don't cater to the mobile audience, you know? So I can see why Sony wants global brand games, but that doesn't mean they don't want Japanese games, right? Because many Japanese games are popular around the world, and I can see why that's what they're going for. That makes sense. Now, it says right here, the fixation on teams that churn out hits is creating unrest across Sony's portfolio game studios. Now, notice he made this statement of studios, meaning multiple studios. Yet he only mentions Sony Ben. Studios is a plural term, not singular. So does Guerrilla have an issue with this? Does Insomniac has an issue with this? Clearly Naughty Dog doesn't have an issue with this. The San Diego Studios, the makers of the team, have an issue with this. The Sucker Punch have an issue with this. You use the word plural, who else? Well, you only talk about Sony Ben, yet in the end, in your same article, they got their wish last month and are now working on a new game of their own that will be part of a brand new franchise. So what unrest are you talking about when last month they got what they wanted, right? And right here is, instead, one team at the studio was assigned to help Naughty Dog with a multiplayer game, while a second group was assigned to work on a new Uncharted game with supervision from Naughty Dog. Some staff, including top leads, were unhappy with this arrangement and left. Ben's developers who feel that they might be absorbed into Naughty Dog, and the studio's leadership asked to be taken off Uncharted project. I'm cautious with this paragraph from Jason Schreier, because my question is, are these statements just from somebody's perspective of just their opinion, how they feel, or were they in conversations with Sony Publishing and the developers, and they discussed a potential absorption of Sony Ben to Naughty Dog, and then, the staff, the bosses made the decision, nah, we're not going to do it. Did that happen? I don't think Sony at any point thought about absorbing Ben Studios to Naughty Dog, because number one, studios out in Oregon, right? And Sony paid for a new facility for them to run. So that type of investment tells me that they're dedicated for them to make games. We already know they got greenlighted for a new AAA a new AAA game. So that's fact right there. So we know they're making a new AAA game. But he made it seem like them helping out Naughty Dog with an Uncharted game, helping out with multiplayer, he being Jason Schreier, tried to make it seem like that's a negative, when in reality, to me, that's collaborative work among PlayStation Studios. In fact, I expect each of them to help each other out. Some of them, let's say like Insomniac, with its work on, machine learning and muscle deformation, able to do ray tracing at 60 frames, I would like to think Insomniac is not hogging all that knowledge and keeping it to themselves. I would like to think that they're helping other studios, informing other studios, teaching them, giving them the playbook on what they're doing for Spider-Man and how they updated Ratchet and Clank to 60 frames. I hope they're actually teaching the other studios these techniques, because that will benefit the whole portfolio of PlayStation Studios as a whole. I don't want Insomniac to hog all that knowledge on, right? It will be a damn shame if Naughty Dog or Santa Monica don't know how to do ray tracing at 60 frames, but yet Insomniac figured it out. I would be pretty upset, if Naughty Dog or Insomniac or Sucker Punch, they make games, right? But the only way you could play them with ray tracing and, and some of those graphical effects is at 30 frames. But once you go in performance mode to 60 frames, they remove ray tracing and it's not there no more. And I'm going to be like, hold on. Insomniac did that right out the gate within the first 3 months at launch. You guys had 2-3 years to make your games. How the hell you can't do what Insomniac did? Oh, you just don't know. Hello? How about you pick up the goddamn phone and call Insomniac? Be like, hey, Papa, mira, I have a problem here. How you do this ray tracing with 60 frames? Coño, let me fly you out. I expect that. So, I'll give you a perfect example. Another one, outside of Sony. Coalition's helping 343 with Halo Infinite. Is that wrong? The collaborative effort, if Bethesda comes, who they just bought, right? And Bethesda's a great publisher. If Bethesda steps in and talks to Microsoft Publishing like, hey, you guys are doing some wrong things in terms of how you present your games, we're going to help you out so that way you will never have a repeat of the July showcase with Halo Infinite. Is that wrong? No. Those are great things. You're taking developers and strengths of other areas and they're taking the knowledge and information and the support and bleeding over to other studios. Because the end state of all of this work and collaboration is, the end result is we get better quality games. That's what it is. What do we get when the game is released? And I appreciate the collaborative effort. Now, the fact, again, that Bend Studios got their new franchise, that tells me that Sony's still all in about Sony Bend making a new game. The issue everybody's having right now is Sony Bend pitched a Days Gone 2, and Sony said, nah, make a new game. Okay? Now, I'm noticing a lot of people have issues of the game, but we have to be honest. The game did receive lukewarm attention. Now, I platinumed the game. I beat the game. I personally think it's a good game, right? I think that the game has potential. I think on the PlayStation 5, they can really take it to the next level, right? I think, especially if they take lessons learned from Sucker Punch and Ghost of Tsushima and how they handled, you know, open world gaming and missions. And Days Gone's like, man, people are really loving all the side missions and how Sucker Punch handled open world game design. And people just love the story. Let's take some cues from that and apply it to our game so people can enjoy more of the side stories and missions in the sequel. I can see that. The problem is, right, when a game is received with lukewarm reception, you cannot trust the initial financial success that the game had. The game itself has been profitable, so enough people bought it to make money. The problem is, due to its lukewarm reception, how many of those people will go back and buy the game day one if a sequel came out? That's the tricky. Because remember, a lot of people bought the game day one and played it. Now that they play the game, how do they feel about it? Well, there's been a lukewarm reception between the reviewers, you know, that make articles and that, and some of the gamers that played it. I'll give you a different example. Suicide Squad, the first one. The trailers, if you look at Suicide Squad trailers, it looks dope. Go back and look at them. Great trailers, dark theme. I was hyped. I'm a DC fan. Don't really care much about the characters, but it just looked great, right? And of course, it was part of DC Universe, so I was all about it, right? Even the Joker character looked pretty cool, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm all in. I saw the movie day one. Went to the theater, IMAX, I think, or whatever. No, big digital theater, right? And I was all about it. At the end of the movie, I'm like, this shit is trash. Like, what the hell? Like, this is garbage. After that, I'm like, yeah, I ain't watching another, what is that? I think the director's name is Jason Gunn. Yeah, I ain't watching another Suicide Squad. That ain't happening. Not happening. Okay? But because I already saw the movie, along with my wife, that money's already been obligated. That means when they hype the movie first weekend, 300 million, 400 million, blah, 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 it's a success. Sure, it's a success because you caught me for a sucker in the beginning. But now that I know how the movie is, you ain't going to catch me a second time. I am not going to watch the sequel. I'm not even going to pay for the sequel. I don't care if it's for rental. If you expect me to watch the sequel, I'll probably watch it on HBO Max. That's about it. But I am not going to the theater, and I am not going to rent it on Amazon Prime. That's not happening, right? For some people, Days Gone is like that. They were hyped about Days Gone. They saw some trailers, but when they played it, they may not like it. And because they didn't like it, they're not going to buy the sequel. And that's what the whole critical reception is about. One good metric that we in PlayStation Nation use is how many people beat games. And we use it to talk trash or whatever. But now we have to self-reflect and look at it. Today, before I decided to do this hot take, I wanted to look how many people beat Days Gone. And it has a pretty good average. It's at 27%. So 27% of the people that play Days Gone beat it. Pretty good, right? But when you compare that to the bigger games or the other AAA games like Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, The Last of Us 2, The Last of Us 1, those games have a much higher percentage, almost double the percentages, much higher, right? In the 40s, 50s, and even in the 60s, The Last of Us, right? Very huge percentage of people beat those games, right? So you have to look at multiple metrics that Sony potentially could be looking at. They could be looking at the critical reception, and they could be looking at the playtime of the games, right? Lukewarm reception, 27% of the people beat it, as compared to Horizon Zero Dawn. Massive critical acclaim, a lot more people beat it. The Last of Us 2, critical acclaim, a lot more people beat it. God of War, critical acclaim, a lot more people beat it. Spider-Man, critical acclaim, a lot more people beat it. Numbers don't lie, right? Numbers don't lie, okay? And what I want to talk about, what I also want to mention is a lot of reviewers, they're embarrassingly fraudulent. Embarrassingly fraudulent. Because now they are tweeting out, oh, this game deserves a sequel, many great things about it, and they list the great things that they enjoyed in the game. I'm not even going to go out there and call them out because they have a career and I don't want to mess with people's career. But I saw one chain of information from a reviewer and she posted all the great things about the game. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you reviewed the game. So let me go back to your review. And when I looked at her original review when the game came out, all these positive points that she's making now, she never put in the original review. You are saying this now in 2021, now that all of a sudden Sony mentioned we're canceling the game. So now these positives you're going to put on Twitter. But you didn't put it in the review in 2019 when the game needed it. Come on now, that was 2 years ago. You can't tell me now all these great things that the game had and which can lead to a great sequel, but you did not mention any of it in your review when you first do it. No, we're not doing that, right? In my eyes, that false, oh my God, Sony is so stupid for to make a sequel, that is false outrage to do your part. In my opinion, I think a lot of these reviewers and influencers, they're trying to give Xbox a better playing field by making these false outrage equivalencies on the PlayStation. I think in their mind, if they keep harping on all the bad and make PlayStation look real bad, that gives Xbox a fighting chance. And that's what it just looks like. Because I don't get why now this reviewer has this big thing of Days Gone should deserve a sequel, and this is the reasons why, but yet in your review you mention none of it. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. Okay. This is another point I want to make up. Emphasizing big hits can also be counterproductive because sometimes games that start small can turn into massive successes. That statement is true. But his logic about Dreams and Roblox is a false equivalency. Right? Because he put, in 2020, Sony didn't put much marketing muscle behind the quirky video game creation system Dreams by the PlayStation-owned Media Molecule. Okay? So, as a result, PlayStation may have missed out on its own version of Roblox, a similar video game tool. The parent company Roblox went public earlier this year and is now valued at $45 billion. Here's my question. Did Roblox have a big marketing push? No. Roblox didn't have a big marketing push. They didn't release a train station and you didn't see Roblox commercials at the Super Bowl or anything. Like, Roblox didn't have big marketing either. So I don't understand the point of this. I understand the point of, small games, games that start out small can be big. I just don't know why he's comparing Dreams with Roblox, because both games didn't have big marketing push. The difference between Dreams and Roblox is Roblox simplicity that attracted a younger audience. A lot of young kids they love Roblox. And you're talking 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds. Ain't no 6-year-old, 7-year-old playing Dreams. Dreams is almost like, kind of like an amateur tool creation game, but you still have to have a little bit of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Roblox, you got 6-year-olds playing that game. That's why I made Roblox so popular. It was the mass amount of young audience it attracted. Had nothing to do with marketing. So this whole paragraph is just trash right here. Because if he would have said, you know, parent company Roblox, when first came out, they, you know, invested $200 million marketing campaign. And as a result, the company going public is now $45 billion. That would have made sense. If he would have showed us how Roblox Corp invested in the marketing campaign, and because of that, it resulted in this, that paragraph would have made sense. But Roblox was never highly marketed, so that's just trash, right? The truth is this, right? Let's talk about the potential Sony's vision of big AAA versus continuing with single A, double A, okay? And we got to be honest brokers and consumers of what we want. We could do all the fake outrage on Twitter and on the internet, right? But in real life, we got to call a spade, okay? Right? I want you to look at your PSN ID or your gamer tag and really look at the library games that you play and beat. Not what you own, right? Because you could get any free game, an indie game, and you just select and to own it, but you never touch it. I want you to actually look at the dedicated games on your profile and what do you actually play and beat, okay? I did that, and as an honest broker, and again, I don't have my profile privatized. It's Porterbox77. You can look at it right now. If you look at what I spend my time to, majority of the games are AAA blockbusters, whether it's first party or third party. Doesn't really matter. But they all have something in common. They're big AAA blockbusters. I have played some indies. You will see on my profile, but not a lot. Okay? And what I mean by indies is not Jack Smooth's definition of indie, as in an independent studio with a AAA budget. I'm using the definition of these small budget titles. So for the sake of argument, my definition of indie for the video is small budget. That's what I'm talking about. Most of the games I'm playing are the big budget AAAs, whether it's first party or third party or second party, regardless, okay? So Sony saying, hey, we're going to double down on AAAs, that is actually a more advantageous and a better way forward for me based on the habits of how I swipe my credit card. How I spend my money is on the big AAAs. How I spend my time is on the big AAAs. So the company saying that that's what they're going to focus on, that will actually increase more output, right? Now, if you look at your PS5 or your PSN profile or gamertag profile, whatever, right? And you honestly are looking at the games you are playing and you more often than not play these indies games, then I will tell you, do not get a PS5. And if you got a PS5, you might want to sell it because that console is not for you. Right? If you primarily play these small indies, these small niche, and you don't really like AAA budget games and you hardly play them, you honestly play this game, I am telling you the truth. I am not going to be these other social media influencers trying to sell you a box. Me lying and trying to sell you a PS5 does not benefit me at all. In fact, that makes me look bad, and that goes against my morals and ethics. You need to get rid of your PS5. Because that is no longer the platform. If you're going off what you did on the PS4 and you enjoyed a whole library of indies and you're thinking, man, PS4 is great, look at these indies and smaller titles and you just love them, PS5 may not be that platform for you, okay, for the long run. My recommendation, now that the iron is hot, you probably could sell that PS5, even though used, you could probably at least sell it for $600, $700. And if you bought games, physical games, you probably could sell those games for $30, $20. You could probably sell that thing for like 700 bundle. A lot of people still want that. Make your money now. Worst case scenario, if in 2-3 years I'm completely wrong and PlayStation still continues to have this huge library of indies, you're like, man, fucking Porter Rock, man. PlayStation 5 ended up with these amazing games. Guess what? You can rebuy it. And by then, the console won't be $500. It'll probably be $350. Hell, they might even release a PS5 Slim, which is smaller and more, appealing. So you're not going to lose out either way. But my advice to you, get rid of your PS5 or don't buy a PS5 now. Wait a couple of years to see this is all sorted out. Because what it sounds like, Sony's really going to double down on the thing that made them the most success, which is the big AAA. Now, in concept, I have no issues with that. Because again, that's my spending habits. So their concept is aligning with my spending habit. But I am concerned with the execution of what they're trying to do. Now, hear me out. If you're going to tell me that you will no longer put in the budget and the time and resources into smaller titles because they're not really hitting the mark based on metrics of sales and sales data and playtime, you see the big AAAs are really what's pushing in the driving force behind the PlayStation brand, right? That's perfectly fine. You're not spending money on lower titles, you're spending money on the bigger titles. But my expectation for this plan to work is that it results in the creation of more AAA titles. That's what double down on AAA means to me. That is, putting the focus on AAA, right? That is my definition of that, okay? I want everyone to understand, because that should be everyone's definition. I'm not trying to impose my will on you, but understand what's being said. If Sony's telling all of us we are going to double down on AAA, if that's the concept, if that's what they're going to adopt forward in the future of PlayStation 5, then we need to expect more AA releases, whether it's second party, relationships, or from their own first party. I don't really count third party timed exclusives because that's just Sony making a deal to temporarily keep a game away from Xbox. I don't really consider that as double downing on AAA because the game's going to be made anyway. Whether it's day one on both Xbox and PlayStation or timed exclusive, it was still going to be made, right? Me looking at double down AAAs is their first party, higher first party output, or more second party deals. With higher first party output, I expect all those money that they're saving or not spending on smaller titles to be used towards either buying studios, A, or B, growing studios, meaning instead of Naughty Dog having 2 teams, why don't you just create a dedicated 3rd and 4th team and just have them so they could create more new IPs. Grow Sucker Punch, I don't know how many teams Sucker Punch have, but let's say if they have 1 team, right? Well, hire more staff and make them have 3 teams so they can work on 2 more IPs. Things like that, right? And then the final approach, go out there, get second party studios, independent studios, and just contract them into dedicated IPs that you own, but you want them to make it, and they're going to make it exclusively for the PS5. They're only going to focus on PS5. And you pay them their money and have a nice day. Similar to how Insomniac used to be when they weren't owned by Sony, but they made Ratchet & Clank, they made Resistance. Those type of relationships, right? That's my expectation, right? As part of this concept of double downing on AAAs. But if Sony's definition of double downing on AAAs is just simply they're going to release the same amount of output, but only they're going to save money because they're no longer going to invest, which means they spend less on the things nobody cares about, then that's not double downing on AAAs. That is downsizing. That's not double downing on AAAs. I think I said that right. That's downsizing smaller budget games. So you didn't double down on AAAs because you're doing the same thing you always did. You didn't change. You didn't increase output. You didn't invest more money to grow more titles. All you did was the same exact output that you normally do gen over gen. But this time you're saving money but not investing in these other projects. That's not double downing or putting a big focus on AAA. That's actually downsizing AA, single A, and indie development. Totally different concepts. If you're going to advertise, and maybe they're not even advertised, but if your strategy is, hey, it's all about the AAAs, we got to put our focus into that. So we're no longer going to put our money in these single A's, indie development, our time, our management. We're not going to put any resource to it. All our resources is going to be dedicated towards AAA. Then I think the final result is still quality AAA, but we need more of it. We need more new IPs and more new developed games. So instead of 2-3 AAA games per year, bump that up to like 5, 6, or 7, simply because of the investment. And however you do it is how you gotta do it. Whether you have to buy new studios or you grow more teams within the studios that you have, or you develop more relationships with more second party studios. However you do it, that's the expectation. And I don't mind that at all. I just have the concern of how Sony's going to execute it. Okay. With that said, that's pretty much my hot take. All right. That's pretty much the hot take that we got here. Okay. Let me know what you think. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and prepare for more content. I have a podcast, 60 Frames No Lag. It's a great popping podcast, great cast, great guests that I invite every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I hope to see you there. On your way out, hit the like button, go to the comment section, and throw your information up in there so we could continue the conversation. You could also catch me on Twitter. I'm going to give you a warning on Twitter. I'm all about the fun and jokes. So I'm going to give you a warning there, all right? But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. And this is Porter Rock 77, your only friend is YouTube Streets, and I'm out of here. Peace.